Okay, let's unpack this. We've all felt it, maybe that strange creeping tingle in your toes, or perhaps a bizarre burning feeling in your feet, especially at night. These are symptoms, that millions of us just kind of shrug off as, oh, I'm just getting older, or maybe I just need better shoes or a good stretch.
Right, we hear that all the time.
But what if those feelings aren't just an annoyance you have to live with?
Yeah.
What if they are actually urgent, flashing warning signs from your body's most complex control center, your nervous system?
They absolutely are. And the real problem, the tough part, is that people often dismiss these feelings. They ignore them until one day they realize, wow, this pain is actually dictating my life. Or they can't feel their feet properly, which leads to really dangerous stumbles and falls.
Yeah.
So we're doing a deep dive into the sources today to really decode this silent epidemic, as some call it, of neuropathy. Our mission really is to help you understand these messages early, because recognizing these symptoms, that's the single biggest difference between catching this condition when it's most manageable, most treatable, and, well, facing very serious complications down the road.
And we know you want to get this information quickly, but, thoroughly too. So we're going to use a core analogy that the sources gave us to try and keep this huge topic really crystal clear.
Good idea.
We want you to think of your nervous system. All those miles and miles of nerves running through your arms, your legs, your core. Think of it like the complex electrical system in an old house. Or maybe like miles of old telephone wires buried under the street.
That analogy is just perfect, because when those wires, your nerves, are healthy, the messages are absolutely crystal clear.
Yeah.
The floor is cold, my shoe feels a bit tight, watch out, that pan is hot.
Simple stuff.
Simple, actionable information, exactly. But when those wires get frayed or pinched or damaged in some way, the signals get totally mixed up. They short circuit. And the brain, it just receives nonsense. Your brain might suddenly scream, danger! Fire, burning from hell. Even when your foot is actually cool to the touch, it's a complete communication breakdown.
So our deep dive today is really structured around that breakdown, that failure. First, we need to recognize the symptoms. What does a failing wire look like or feel like? Second, we need to understand why the damage is happening.
Yeah.
What are the root causes?
Crucial.
And finally, we need to know what powerful, targeted steps you can actually take to stop the damage and hopefully encourage those resilient nerves to heal. Okay, let's start with the stuff you feel, right? The sensory nerves. These are usually the very first wires to start showing signs of fraying, giving you those early warnings. We're talking about tingling, that classic pins and needles feeling.
Yeah, this is often chapter 1 in the story of neuropathy. It starts really subtly, maybe just at bedtime. And it feels exactly like your foot has fallen asleep, that prickly sensation.
Yeah, we all know that feeling.
Right, but the difference is shaking it or walking around doesn't make it go away anymore. That pins and needles feeling becomes your new kind of unwanted, constant companion. And the descriptions we found in the sources, they're really vivid. People describe it like constantly walking on bubble wrap.
Oh, wow.
Or feeling a persistent low-grade internal buzzing, or even feeling like their feet are full of carbonation, like they're dissolving in fizzy soda water.
That's quite a description. And you mentioned bedtime. Why does it seem to get so much worse in the evening, just when you're trying to rest?
That's a really fascinating question, and it seems to have a lot to do with blood flow and also brain activity. During the day, you're moving around, gravity helps.
Oh.
It helps circulate blood, which can slightly mask the problem.
Okay.
But at night, when you lie down, your heart rate slows, circulation to those really far-flung nerve endings in your feet, it drops even further. They're already struggling for oxygen, right? And at night, they just start screaming louder. Plus, think about it, during the day, your brain is juggling thousands of signals, thousands of stimuli. But at night, when everything else gets quiet,
It focuses.
it focuses entirely on that one irritating signal, the tingling or maybe the pain, and it just amplifies it, makes it feel much worse.
That makes perfect sense. It's like the only channel left on the TV. But as the damage progresses, we hit something the sources call the numbness paradox. What's that about?
Right, the numbness. This typically starts in the toes, maybe the fingertips too, and it slowly creeps up the foot or hand. It's a very strange sensation. People describe it as feeling like you're wearing thick, invisible socks or maybe invisible gloves, even when you're completely barefoot.
Invisible socks.
Or they might say it feels like walking on layers of foam or cotton balls. But here's the paradox. Many people experience this complete deafness, this numbness, at the same time as they experience intense, searing pain. In the very same area?
Wait, hold on. So the nerve is so broken, it fails to send accurate signals like the floor is hard or the water is warm.
Yeah.
But simultaneously, it's sending these intense, false pain signals.
Yeah.
It sounds, well, exhausting.
It is exhausting, exactly. The wire is completely short-circuiting. It's like having a broken smoke detector that goes off with these deafening shrieks randomly through the night.
Yeah.
But then when there's an actual fire, it stays totally silent. And that silence, the numbness, that's the truly scary part.
That's the real danger, isn't it? The inability to feel an injury.
Precisely. If you can't feel pressure or pain properly, you might walk for hours on a small blister or a hot spot from your shoe rubbing, or even a pebble or a piece of glass inside your shoe.
Oh, gosh.
Stories from the sources, they mention patients finding deep cuts or even, foreign objects embedded in their foot that they never even registered because the nerve signals simply didn't make it to the brain. This lack of awareness turns tiny, minor cuts into major, potentially limb-threatening infections, which is why daily foot checks become absolutely essential. You literally have to become the eyes and ears for your feet.
You have to visually check them every day.
Okay.
Let's move to the pain itself, because it plays by different rules, doesn't it? Neuropathy pain isn't like a standard bruise or a muscle ache. It's very specific and, frankly, terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
The first type is the burning pain.
Ah, yes, the legendary burning from hell that the sources frequently cite. It's often a constant sensation day and night. Feels like walking barefoot on hot asphalt in the middle of summer. Or like standing with your feet literally inside a baker's oven, even when, to the touch, they are physically cool, sometimes even cold. It is relentless.
Wow.
And this burning, especially coupled with that nighttime amplification we just talked about, is what absolutely robs people of sleep.
And this is where people start resorting to desperate tactics, right? Like the frozen peas or sticking their feet on a cold tile floor.
Yes, exactly. They'll hang their feet off the edge of the bed for hours or keep bags of frozen vegetables nearby because that intense cold provides some temporary relief. It dulls that overwhelming heat signal.
Just to get some sleep.
Just to get some sleep. Imagine having to do that every night.
Mm-hmm.
And it also highlights something else we need to touch on, that heightened sensitivity. The burning can be so intense that sometimes even the slightest pressure, like a light cotton sheet, feels like torture. Like heavy sandpaper dragging across a raw wound.
That's awful. Speaking of unpredictable torture, what about the stabbing or the shooting pains, the ones that come out of nowhere?
Right. These are the sudden, often severe, and utterly unpredictable sensations. The sources call them things like lightning bolt pains or ice pick jabs.
Ouch.
Unlike the constant burning, these strike intensely, maybe lasting only a few seconds, and then they just vanish as quickly as they appeared. They drive people absolutely crazy because you just can't anticipate them. One moment you're fine, the next it feels like a sharp object has just been plunged into your arch or your toe.
And sometimes they're triggered by things that shouldn't hurt at all, right?
Yes, exactly. Which brings us to that heightened sensitivity. The medical term is allodynia. Can soft things truly cause this level of agony?
It seems unbelievable.
It does, but yes. This is one of the most bizarre and distressing symptoms. Allodynia literally means other pain. Your nerves have completely crossed their wires. So a cool breeze blowing across your skin might feel like thousands of tiny needles piercing you.
Wow.
The light touch of a spouse's hand, which should be comforting, or even just the friction of pulling on a soft sock can feel excruciatingly painful. The nerve is just so hyperexcitable that any input, even the most gentle one, gets misinterpreted by the brain as a massive threatening pain signal.
That's a really powerful visualization of that broken electrical system idea.
Mm-hmm.
The wires are so frayed they just can't tell the difference between a simple touch, a simple current, and a massive electrical surge.
Exactly. The difference between a gentle touch and a genuine trauma has been completely eliminated in the brain's perception.
Okay, now let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about what you feel. Let's talk about what you do or maybe what you can't do anymore. We're talking about the motor nerves, the wires that control function and movement.
Mm-hmm.
If the sensory nerves are the alarm system, the motor nerves are maybe the actuators, the things that make stuff happen.
Right. This affects what your body can physically do, and it often manifests as weakness, but it's a weakness that's far beyond just being tired or out of shape.
Okay.
It's genuine muscle inability. Climbing stairs becomes a serious, often exhausting challenge. Getting up from a low chair or maybe getting out of a car requires deliberate, focused effort, sometimes using your arms to push off. Many people describe this sensation that their feet just feel incredibly heavy, like they're wearing lead boots. It makes every single step feel like a monumental effort.
And this often spirals into balance issues, doesn't it? Which is one of the biggest risks for falls, especially in older adults. The sources refer to this as the wobbles.
The wobbles, yeah. They happen because of that communication breakdown we keep coming back to. Think of it this way. When you walk normally, your brain relies on a constant, accurate map of the ground. That map is created by signals coming from your feet and ankles telling your brain exactly where they are, what the surface is like.
Okay, makes sense.
When those sensory wires are damaged, that map becomes fuzzy or maybe even blank in places. The brain simply can't sense the ground properly, so you start feeling unsteady, maybe even a bit dizzy or feeling drunk even when you're perfectly sober.
Right.
And this forces you to rely on external supports. You start shuffling your feet maybe, or you find yourself hugging walls and touching furniture as you walk, trying to get external validation that the ground is actually still there beneath you.
And related to that is something called foot drop.
Mm.
That sounds quite descriptive, like a mechanical failure.
It is essentially a mechanical failure caused by nerve signal failure. Foot drop happens when the muscles that are responsible for lifting the front part of your foot, your toes, aren't getting the proper signal from those motor nerves. So when you try to take a step, the front of your foot just drags on the ground. You start tripping over absolutely nothing. A tiny lip on a rug, a small crack in the pavement. It's incredibly frustrating and dangerous.
Yeah, I can imagine. How do people compensate?
Well, to compensate, people often adopt a very distinctive high stepping gait. They lift their knee much higher than normal, almost like marching, just to make sure their foot clears the floor.
Okay. And we shouldn't ignore the physical deterioration either. Things like frequent, often painful muscle spasms or cramps. And eventually the muscles actually shrinking, wasting away.
Yes, those are also driven by the motor nerve damage. The cramps happen because the nerve signals are erratic, causing muscles to contract involuntarily and painfully. And the muscle wasting or atrophy, well, that happens because the muscles aren't getting those consistent electrical signals they need to stay active and strong. Without that input, they just gradually shrink.
Which brings us to the final, and maybe the most confusing, set of symptoms, the ones related to the autonomic nervous system. These are the nerves controlling the body's automatic processes, like your internal autopilot, right?
Exactly. Your heart rate, your blood pressure adjustments, digestion, sweating, bladder control, all the things your body does without you having to consciously think about it.
Now, these issues seem completely unrelated to foot pain or tingling feet. Why would damage to the nerves in my feet, say, also affect my stomach or my bladder?
Yeah, it seems disconnected, but it's because the damage often isn't just local, it can be systemic. Those nerve wires run everywhere. And the autonomic system is like the body's internal maintenance crew controlling the plumbing, the thermostat, the whole infrastructure. If that crew starts to break down because the communication lines are faulty, problems show up all over the place. For digestion and bathroom issues, for example, we see seemingly unrelated complaints pop up. Things like persistent bloating or maybe severe constipation, or the opposite sometimes, or feeling really full almost instantly after eating just a few bites of food.
Why does that happen?
It happens because the nerves that control the rhythmic movement of food through your stomach and intestines, called peristalsis, are failing. Things just aren't moving along as they should.
And similarly, things like bladder control issues, which, let's face it, are often immediately blamed on just aging, especially for women, or maybe childbirth. Those might actually be nerve-related, too.
Yes, absolutely. Unexpected changes in bladder control, whether it's urgency, that sudden, desperate need to go right now, or conversely, difficulty fully emptying the bladder, these can definitely be a sign that the autonomic nerves controlling those muscles are struggling to coordinate properly. It's so crucial to realize these aren't always isolated problems. They can be pieces of the very same puzzle, the neuropathy puzzle.
Okay. And what about circulation and temperature control? That seems more directly linked to the feet.
It is, but it's the autonomic nerves messing things up. This is where the nerve damage acts like a broken thermostat and maybe a faulty irrigation system all rolled into one.
How so?
Well, damaged autonomic nerves mess up the signals that tell your blood vessels when to constrict and when to dilate, and also control your sweat glands. So you might look down and find your feet look unusually red or purple or maybe really pale because the blood vessels aren't responding correctly.
Okay.
They might swell up for no apparent reason. And another huge sign is difficulty regulating temperature. You might have feet that are either excessively sweaty all the time or completely dry and cracked. Sometimes, weirdly, one foot might be doing one thing and the other foot doing the complete opposite.
Wow, that is strange. And finally, that sudden dizziness when you stand up quickly, That's a classic sign of autonomic failure, isn't it? Often called orthostatic hypotension.
Absolutely classic. When you stand up from sitting or lying down, healthy autonomic nerves instantly signal your blood vessels, especially in your legs, to constrict slightly. And they tell your heart to speed up just a tiny bit
Why?
to counteract gravity, basically. It prevents blood from pooling too quickly in your legs and keeps enough blood flowing up to your brain. If those autonomic nerves are damaged, that instant adjustment fails. Your blood pressure drops suddenly.
You feel dizzy.
You get that lightheaded, dizzy, sometimes even faint feeling, which again dramatically increases the risk of falling. And this is so often dismissed as just being a bit out of shape or, oh, I just have low blood pressure. But it can be a critical warning sign from your autonomic control system failing.
Okay, we've now established a pretty long and honestly kind of scary list of symptoms, from that buzzing in your toes to unexpected dizziness. So the next most critical phase of this deep dive has to be understanding the why. Why is this happening?
Exactly. And the sources stress this over and over again. Nerves don't just break down randomly. There is almost always a reason, an underlying cause, even if a doctor initially uses the term idiopathic neuropathy, which, as we mentioned, is really just a fancy way of saying, look, we haven't figured out why this is happening to you yet.
Right. It means cause unknown.
Cause unknown. But the goal of our deep dive here is to empower you, the listener, to move past that unknown diagnosis, because so many of the potential causes are actually treatable or even reversible if you find them early enough.
Okay, so let's start with the undisputed heavyweight champion of neuropathy, causes the usual suspect, metabolic damage, particularly from diabetes and, importantly, prediabetes.
Right. High blood sugar is incredibly destructive to nerves, and it works in sort of two main ways. First, the sugar itself, floating around in high concentrations over time, acts almost like acid eating through metal. It slowly poisons the nerve cells directly. Second, and this is absolutely crucial, the high sugar also damages the tiny, delicate blood vessels, the microvessels that are responsible for feeding the nerves. They bring the oxygen, they bring the nutrients. High sugar damages those supply lines.
It's like starvation by strangulation.
That's a great way to put it, starvation by strangulation. The sources give us that great visual. Think about leaving a rubber band out in the sun all summer long. What happens?
It gets brittle, cracks.
It becomes brittle, fragile, and eventually it just snaps with the slightest pressure. That is essentially what years and years of high blood sugar does to your delicate nerves and the vessels that feed them.
And this brings us to the danger zone that millions and millions of people are in and don't even realize it, the prediabetes and insulin resistance phase. You don't have to have full-blown diabetes, right?
Absolutely not. This is so important. You do not need a formal diabetes diagnosis for nerve damage to start accumulating. Even blood sugar levels that are just a little high, maybe in that pre-diabetic range, or even just the persistent state of insulin resistance where your body is struggling to manage sugar effectively, even that causes years, often decades, of cumulative damage.
Decades. Wow.
Yes. Think of it like rust forming on metal. It starts really slowly, almost invisibly, maybe a decade or more before a full diabetes diagnosis is ever made. But that whole time, it's relentlessly corroding the nerve structure.
So the takeaway is?
The takeaway is that testing shouldn't just look for full-blown diabetes. You need to look for those early warning signs: insulin resistance, slightly elevated fasting glucose, or A1C. If you have neuropathy symptoms, the default assumption really should be that sugar metabolism is at least part of the problem until it's definitively proven otherwise.
Okay. And we also need to address why the feet almost always get hit first. It seems like the damage is systemic, from the sugar, but the symptoms start way down there.
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive, but it's purely about logistics and distance. Your feet and your hands, too, are the absolute farthest points from your central command, your heart, which pumps the blood, and your spinal cord, which is the nerve highway.
Right. End of the line.
Exactly. End of the line. Blood has to fight gravity to get all the way down there and back. They are, simply put, at the very end of the supply chain. We used the lonely tomato plant analogy earlier. They're stuck in the back corner of the garden, getting whatever water and nutrients are left over after the main, closer plants have taken their share.
Makes sense.
So when circulation gets compromised, even slightly, or maybe nutrient levels are low systemically, those nerves at the farthest reaches suffer first and hardest.
Okay, next big category of causes: nutritional starvation. You mentioned nerves need nutrients. They're incredibly high-energy tissues, right? And they're hungry for specific fuels. If they don't get them, they just can't function properly or repair themselves.
Precisely. And top of the list here, according to the sources, is the B12 crisis. Vitamin B12 deficiency is a major yet frequently missed cause of peripheral neuropathy.
Why is B12 so critical for nerves?
B12 is absolutely essential for maintaining the myelin sheath. That's the protective, fatty insulation that coats your nerve fibers, like the plastic coating on an electrical wire.
Ah, the insulation.
Exactly. Without enough B12, that insulation starts to deteriorate, it gets thin and patchy, the nerve wires start getting exposed. This leads directly to short circuits, causing things like burning pain, tingling, and those inaccurate signals we talked about.
And deficiency is surprisingly common, isn't it? Especially in the senior population, the very people most likely to experience neuropathy. Why is B12 absorption such a widespread problem?
There are two main reasons highlighted. First, simply the process of aging often decreases your stomach's ability to produce enough acid. And you need sufficient stomach acid to properly separate the B12 from the protein in your food so you can absorb it.
Okay, so less acid, less B12 gets in.
Right. Second, and this is critically important, many very common medications directly interfere with B12 absorption.
Like the ones we hear about all the time. Metformin, which is widely prescribed for diabetes and prediabetes, and those common acid-blocking drugs people take for chronic heartburn or reflux.
Correct, on both counts. Metformin is well known to interfere with B12 absorption in the gut over long-term use. And acid-blocking drugs, especially the strong ones called proton pump inhibitors or PPIs, well, their whole job is to dramatically reduce stomach acid. Less acid means less B12 release from your food.
So you could be eating B12-rich foods or even taking a standard multivitamin, but your body just can't pull the B12 out and use it because of these medications.
Precisely. So if you take either of those types of medications regularly and you have neuropathy symptoms, you absolutely need specific B12 testing, not just the standard serum level, but maybe markers like MMA or homocysteine, which can show deficiency even if the blood level looks borderline normal.
Good to know. Any other key vitamins?
We should also briefly mention B1, which is thiamine. Deficiency there is often linked to poor diet or significantly chronic alcohol use. And then there's the very tricky nature of vitamin B6.
Tricky how? What's tricky about B6?
Well, B6 is definitely required for nerve health, so being deficient in B6 can cause neuropathy. However, and this is the tricky part, if you oversupplement with high doses of B6 for extended periods, the excess B6 also becomes toxic to the nerves and causes neuropathy.
Wow, so too little is bad and too much is bad.
Exactly. It's one of the few vitamins where both deficiency and overdose can cause the very same terrible symptoms. So you have to be careful with high-dose B6 supplements unless you're monitored.
Okay. And don't forget the minerals.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Magnesium deficiency is incredibly prevalent in the modern world. It's often depleted by chronic stress, certain medications, and modern diets lacking in magnesium-rich foods. And magnesium plays a vital role in regulating nerve excitability and signaling. If your magnesium levels are low, your nerves are naturally sort of twitchier, more prone to misfiring and sending out those inappropriate pain or tingling signals.
This leads us neatly into the next category. The hidden cabinet culprits, medications, and toxins. This is difficult truth for many people to hear, but many drugs taken to treat one condition can, unfortunately, be silently damaging your nerves over the long term.
It is a tough one. Let's start with statins, that hugely popular class of cholesterol-lowering drugs. The sources are quite clear that these can absolutely cause or worsen peripheral neuropathy. And because it often happens slowly, gradually over years, the cause and effect connection can be very hard for patients, and sometimes even doctors, to spot.
Why do statins harm nerves? Is there a known mechanism?
Yes, the primary mechanism seems to be their interference with the body's production of coenzyme Q10, usually just called CoQ10.
CoQ10, I've heard of that. What does it do?
Think of CoQ10 as the essential high-octane fuel for the mitochondria within your cells. Mitochondria are the little powerhouses that generate energy. Nerves, being these incredibly long, busy electrical wires, are extremely high-energy tissues. They need massive amounts of CoQ10 to maintain that myelin insulation, transmit signals effectively, and repair themselves constantly.
Okay.
When statins deplete this crucial cellular fuel, the nerve slowly begins to starve energetically, and it starts to break down.
So, in effect, the body might be forced into a difficult choice. Manage cholesterol levels versus adequately powering its most complex electrical system, the nerves.
That's a good way to frame the dilemma. Now, the benefit of the statin might still outweigh the risk for many people, especially those at high risk of heart attack or stroke. But if you develop neuropathy symptoms while taking a statin, it's definitely something you need to discuss with your doctor. Maybe CoQ10 supplementation could help, or perhaps exploring different cholesterol management approaches is warranted.
Okay. Then there is chemotherapy. The sources call this the cruel irony. You fight and beat cancer, which is wonderful, but the very poisons used to kill the rapidly dividing cancer cells often end up poisoning the rapidly firing nerve cells too, leaving you with painful, numb feet and hands.
It's truly heartbreaking for many survivors, and what makes it even tougher is that this damage, called chemotherapy-induced peripheral neuropathy or CIPN, is often delayed. The toxicity can build up during treatment, but the symptoms might not even show up, or might get much worse months after the treatment has finished.
Wow, months later.
Yes, it can feel like a final painful kick when you thought you were finally in the clear and starting to recover.
And certain antibiotics are also highly suspect, which might surprise people.
Yes, this is crucial awareness. We must specifically warn about the class of antibiotics known as fluoroquinolones. This includes commonly prescribed drugs like Cipro, ciprofloxacin, and lofofloxacin.
What's the issue with those?
The sources explicitly state, and there are FDA warnings about this, that nerve damage peripheral neuropathy can occur acutely, sometimes even after just a few doses of these drugs. And terrifyingly, the damage often continues to progress or persists long after the medication has been stopped.
That sounds really serious.
It is. This damage is widely documented and needs to be considered a serious potential risk when these antibiotics are prescribed, especially if there are safer alternatives available for this specific infection.
Oh, okay. And finally, under toxins, we have very socially acceptable poison. Alcohol.
Yes. It's important to be blunt about this. Regular chronic alcohol consumption, even what many people might consider moderate drinking, maybe a glass or two of wine every night over many years, can directly poison and damage nerve tissue.
Directly toxic.
Directly toxic. Furthermore, chronic alcohol use severely impairs the body's ability to absorb and utilize essential nutrients, especially thiamine, B1 and B12, so you get a devastating dual whammy: direct nerve toxicity from the alcohol itself, plus indirect damage from the nutritional starvation it causes.
Okay, moving beyond internal toxins and deficiencies, sometimes the problem is more straightforwardly mechanical or involves immune attacks.
Right. A simple physical pinch is a major and sometimes overlooked cause. And crucially, as we touched on, a pinched nerve in your back, maybe from a bulging disc or spinal stenosis or scar tissue, can absolutely cause symptoms like pain, tingling, or numbness down in your feet, even if you don't feel any significant pain in your back itself.
That's called radiculopathy.
Exactly, radiculopathy. The wire is being compressed or irritated closer to the source, near the spinal cord. But the symptoms manifest at the far end of that nerve's pathway, often in the leg or foot. This compression can come from old injuries that never quite healed right, scar tissue from previous back surgeries, or even just chronic poor posture putting sustained pressure on nerve roots.
Okay, and then there's the body attacking itself, autoimmune causes.
Yes, this is a particularly devastating scenario. It's where your body's own immune system mistakenly identifies parts of your peripheral nerve tissue. Maybe the myelin sheath, maybe the nerve axon itself as a foreign invader, like a bacteria or a virus.
And it attacks.
It launches an attack, trying to destroy what it perceives as a threat. Conditions like Guillain-Barré syndrome are an acute example, but there are chronic autoimmune neuropathies too, sometimes associated with conditions like Sjogren's syndrome, lupus, or rheumatoid arthritis. Often, the underlying mechanism is chronic, low-grade inflammation throughout the body, which acts like a slow-burning fire, gradually destroying nerve tissue over time.
And finally, we can't forget systemic failures in other organs.
Right. Your kidneys and your liver are the primary filtration systems of your body. They remove toxins and waste products from your blood. If these organs begin to fail, even mildly, say, with chronic kidney disease, stages 1, 2, or 3 toxins that would normally be filtered out start to build up in your bloodstream.
And that toxic blood circulates everywhere.
Exactly. It circulates throughout the body, and that toxic load essentially poisons the nerves systemically. So even mild kidney dysfunction or liver disease can trigger or significantly accelerate peripheral neuropathy. It's yet another crucial reason why a comprehensive medical investigation, looking beyond just the nerves themselves, is absolutely vital.
Wow. Understanding all these potential causes really makes those initial symptoms feel even more urgent, doesn't it? It also helps us grasp how this condition progresses. It doesn't usually just hit you full force all at once, right? It creeps up.
No, typically not. It usually follows a fairly predictable, often slow downward spiral. And recognizing where you might be in this process can provide both a sense of urgency, but also, importantly, a sense of hope for intervention. The sources describe a pretty clear path across three main stages. Stage one is the early stage, and this is the stage that's dangerously easy to ignore.
This is that mild, maybe intermittent tingling we talked about. Perhaps your feet feel a bit funny at the end of the day, but it's easily dismissed. Maybe just walk it off or change your shoes, and it seems to go away for a while.
Exactly. And that is, without a doubt, the most important stage to recognize and act upon. Why? Because the actual physical damage to the nerves is still minimal at this point. The potential for stopping the progression and maybe even reversing the symptoms entirely is at its absolute peak.
But
But this is precisely the stage where the vast majority of people unfortunately shrug it off. You think, oh, it's just age, or I overdid it yesterday, and they delay seeking help, sometimes for years.
Okay. Then, if there's no intervention, you drift into the middle stage, what the sources call the can't ignore anymore stage.
Right. Now, the symptoms become constant companions, not just occasional annoyances. That burning pain might be regular, maybe every night, not just once in a while. The numbness might be more noticeable, more persistent. You start actively changing your life to accommodate the symptoms.
Wow.
Maybe you start avoiding longer walks or activities you used to enjoy. You find yourself only wearing certain types of soft, cushiony shoes all the time. Perhaps climbing stairs becomes a noticeable struggle. Balance problems might become more apparent. Maybe you've had a near fall or two. Daily tasks just require more conscious effort and planning. And often, this is the stage where people start actively trying to manage the pain, frequently starting down the path of prescription pain medications.
Okay. And if that downward spiral continues, unfortunately, we reach the advanced stage.
Yes, and this stage is truly life-altering. The pain can become severe, chronic, and often unmanageable, sometimes requiring very heavy-duty medications with significant side effects. Or conversely, you might develop complete, profound numbness in the feet or hands.
Which we know is incredibly dangerous.
Incredibly dangerous. It puts you at extremely high risk for serious injuries, undetected infections, foot ulcers that won't heal, and potentially even amputations because you literally cannot feel anything happening down there. On top of that, muscle weakness often becomes severe, severely limiting mobility, impacting independence, and sometimes making it unsafe to live alone.
That stark progression really highlights the power of early intervention. Why is catching it early the single biggest difference maker? You said the damage is minimal then.
It really comes back to that plant analogy we touched upon. Think about it. If you notice your favorite houseplant just starting to droop a little, the leaves looking a bit sad, those are the early symptoms,
Yeah,
right?
it needs water probably.
Exactly. You can usually save it easily. You give it some water, maybe move it to better light, perhaps a little fertilizer, and very often you can bring it right back to full, vibrant health.
Yeah.
But if you wait until the leaves are all brown, crispy, dried up, and have actually fallen off the stems, that's like the advanced stage of neuropathy, you can't bring those dead leaves back to life. The damage has become permanent, irreversible.
So the really good news here, the hopeful message, is that those uncomfortable symptoms we described first, the burning, the tingling, the buzzing, even the early pain, they were not actually signs of nerve death. They are distress signals.
Right. Precisely. That is such a key point. They mean the nerves are struggling, they're stressed, maybe starved for oxygen or nutrients, maybe being mildly poisoned, but they are still alive. They are alive and capable of transmitting a signal, even if it's a desperate SOS signal.
So there's still time.
There is still time. Time to intervene, to find and address the underlying cause, stop the ongoing damage, and potentially allow those symptoms to reverse because the nerve hasn't been permanently destroyed yet. You don't have to simply accept this as an inevitable side effect of growing older. That is the fundamental message of hope here.
Okay, so if you recognize yourself in these symptoms, especially those early or middle stage ones, the first step is always investigation, seeing a doctor, and then taking action. But we really have to tackle the most common treatment approach first, because our sources were quite critical of relying only on the pill-only solution. We're talking about drugs like gabapentin, Lyrica, Cymbalta, or other medications often prescribed for nerve pain.
Yes, and we need to be really clear about the purpose and limitations of these drugs. They can absolutely be helpful, sometimes essential, for managing the symptom of pain. For some people, they are necessary just to get some sleep or function day to day. We're not dismissing their role,
Right.
but they don't do anything to address the underlying cause of the nerve damage. They don't heal the nerve. Our analogy holds using these medications alone is like putting a muffler on a car that has serious engine problems.
Ah, right. Quiets the noise.
It quiets the noise, it masks the alarm signal, the pain, which might make the ride more tolerable for a while. But the engine is still broken. The damage, the corrosion, the starvation, whatever the root cause is, it continues to progress underneath the surface, often silently once the pain is masked. We need to target the engine itself.
So how do we target the engine? How do we shift to therapies that actually work with the nerves to help them heal and function better, rather than just quieting the pain signals? One key therapy mentioned prominently in the sources is neuromuscular electrical stimulation, often shortened to NMES. Sounds technical.
It sounds technical, but the concept is actually quite simple. Think of it as highly specific physical therapy, but for the nerves themselves, focusing on functional healing. NMES works by sending very gentle, carefully calibrated electrical pulses through pads placed on the skin, targeting the damaged nerve pathways.
Gentle pulses, so it's not like a tendon unit that just blocks pain.
No, it's different. While it can have some pain-reducing effects, the primary goals are different. Think of a nerve that's become quiet, maybe dormant due to lack of proper signaling or blood flow. These gentle pulses are like tiny jogs or wake-up calls, encouraging that nerve to start firing again, to start transmitting signals properly.
Okay, so waking up quiet nerves is one goal. What else does it do?
There are really three main goals. First, as you say, it literally wakes up quiet or dormant nerves, helping them sort of relearn how to fire correctly. Second, and this is incredibly important, the gentle muscle contractions caused by these pulses act like a pump. They dramatically improve blood flow to the affected area.
Ah, bringing the supplies.
Exactly. It's like sending a massive resupply convoy filled with oxygen and vital nutrients right to those starving nerve endings that desperately need them for repair.
So it's not just a pain reliever. It's actually a delivery system for the building blocks of healing.
That's a fantastic way to put it. And third, there's evidence suggesting that the regular rhythmic stimulation itself can actually encourage the damaged nerves to regenerate, to rebuild that protective myelin coating, to sprout new connections. It's actively helping the body rebuild those frayed wires.
And the sources mention a shift here, that this kind of therapy is becoming more accessible.
Yes, that's a key point. Historically, this type of advanced electrical stimulation was mostly done in physical therapy clinics, which meant periodic visits, maybe a couple of times a week at best. But the sources highlight the massive shift now. Specialized technology, devices specifically designed for neuropathy, now allow this kind of targeted therapy to be done effectively and safely right in your own home.
Which means consistency, right? You could potentially give your nerves the stimulation they need for, say, 15 or 30 minutes every single day, maybe while you're just sitting and watching TV or reading a book.
Consistency is absolutely paramount because nerves, unfortunately, heal incredibly slowly. The often quoted figure is maybe a millimeter a day under optimal conditions. That's really slow.
Yeah, tiny.
So infrequent therapy sessions just aren't enough to make a big dent. But with regular, consistent electrical stimulation done at home, combined with addressing the root causes and other supportive care, the sources clearly show people experiencing significant cumulative improvements over time. Things like less tingling, a real reduction in burning pain, gradually regaining more sensation in their feet, and crucially, noticing better balance and stability.
Okay, but treating neuropathy is never just one thing, is it? It's always a comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
You have to support your nerves from every possible angle, starting with some simple but critical lifestyle fixes.
Absolutely. And number one is you must get that blood moving, especially to the feet. Nerves are oxygen addicts, remember?
Yeah.
And the best way to deliver that oxygen and those vital nutrients is through fresh flowing blood.
So what can people do?
Simple actions matter immensely. Things like making a conscious habit of doing ankle rolls while you're sitting, wiggling your toes frequently throughout the day, getting up and taking short, regular walks, even just around the house, helps act as a pump to push fresh blood down to those far-flung nerve endings.
Simple stuff.
Very simple. And basic hydration, drink plenty of water, because thicker, sludgier, dehydrated blood simply doesn't flow as well through those tiny microvessels that feed the nerves. And please, stop sitting with your legs crossed for long periods. That physically constricts blood flow instantly.
Good reminder.
Oh.
Okay, blood sugar control. We have to reiterate this point one more time, don't we? Even small improvements in keeping blood glucose levels stable matter tremendously for stopping that ongoing nerve erosion.
If you take away only one thing about causes, let it be this. If you do nothing else, stabilizing your blood sugar is the single most effective action you can take to stop the progressive damage. If your sugar is constantly high, You are basically pouring acid on those delicate nerve wires every single day. If you can stabilize it, even if not perfectly, you stop pouring the acid. The corrosion process slows or halts.
Crucial. Now let's talk foot safety again. This is absolutely vital, especially if you have numbness. It's about basic survival, really.
You absolutely must baby your feet if you have neuropathy with numbness. This means making the daily inspection rule non-negotiable. Look at your feet top, bottom, between the toes every single day. Use a mirror if you can't see the bottoms easily. Check meticulously for any cuts, blisters, red spots, or pressure points that you might not be able to feel.
And the barefoot rule.
Never, ever go barefoot. Not even inside your own house. It's just too easy to step on a tiny shard of glass, a dropped pin, or even just stub a toe really hard without realizing the extent of the injury. Always wear protective footwear, even slippers inside.
And choosing the right shoes.
Choose comfort and protection over fashion every time. Look for shoes with a wide toe box so your toes aren't squished. Good cushioning is essential. Make sure there are no rough seams inside that could rub. And ensure they fit properly, not too tight to constrict circulation, but not too loose to cause rubbing and blisters.
Okay, finally, advocacy and investigation. You have to become your own nerve detective, right? Take charge.
Absolutely. Start by keeping a symptom diary. Write down detailed notes. What exactly do you feel? Burning, tingling, numbness, weakness. Where do you feel it? When does it happen? What makes it worse? What, if anything, seems to make it better? This detailed information is absolute gold for a doctor trying to diagnose the cause.
And don't just accept.
Don't just accept an idiopathic diagnosis or being told it's just your age, learn to live with it. Insist on a deep dive with your doctor or seek a referral to a neurologist or specialist who deals with neuropathy. Comprehensive testing is often necessary to find that hidden underlying cause.
What kind of testing?
Testing for vitamin levels, especially B12, B1, B6, maybe folate and vitamin D. Checking thyroid function thoroughly, looking for markers of inflammation, checking kidney and liver function. Sometimes testing for heavy metals or autoimmune markers might be needed depending on your history and other symptoms. You have to look under all the rocks.
Because if the cause is found, say, turns out you have a severe B12 deficiency that was being caused by your long-term acid reflux medication, or maybe it's undiagnosed prediabetes, or an inflammatory issue, addressing that specific root cause is the first and most critical step towards stopping the ongoing damage. And that's what actually opens the door to potential reversal and recovery. Hashtag outro.
So let's just summarize the main message we've really unpacked today from all these sources. You are not helpless in the face of these symptoms. That buzzing, that burning, the tingling, the weakness, those are powerful alarm signals from your body. They are not, generally speaking, an inevitable part of just getting older that you have to passively accept.
Right. You now have a much clearer picture of the wide range of symptoms to watch for. You understand many of the potential causes, the reasons why those nerve wires might be fraying, causes that might be hiding in plain sight in your diet, your medicine cabinet, or your blood sugar levels.
And importantly, you know there are paths to comprehensive treatment that actually target the engine of the problem, the nerve damage itself, rather than just putting a muffler on the pain.
The hope we definitely found woven through the sources is tangible. Real people see meaningful improvements. They experience less pain, they regain more feeling, they achieve better balance, they reclaim more independence. But it comes with consistent, comprehensive action. Your nerves are incredibly resilient, and they truly want to heal, but they absolutely need your help, your advocacy, and your consistency.
Yeah, they do. Now, our discussion today focused heavily on finding the root cause of the neuropathy and actively treating the symptoms and promoting healing through things like electrical stimulation and managing those underlying conditions. But for you, the listener, to maybe explore further on your own. If we accept that nerve healing is often agonizingly slow, requiring real patience, what is the single most effective daily habit outside of the formal medical treatments we discussed that successful neuropathy patients swear by? What keeps them going and helps them maintain consistency and resilience over the long haul, even when progress feels frustratingly slow?
That's a great question to ponder. Is it maybe a non-negotiable, dedicated daily foot circulation routine, something they do religiously even when they don't feel like it? Or perhaps it's mastering pain coping techniques like mindful meditation, specifically to reduce that brain amplification of the pain signals we talked about. Or maybe it's something else entirely. That's the consistency puzzle we'll leave you with.
Don't let neuropathy symptoms steal another day from you without a fight. Take this knowledge, take these insights, and act as your own best advocate. It's time to investigate, take action, and start helping those resilient nerves get what they need to heal.
Before you go, I need to share something important with you. Listen, I know you're exhausted, not just from the pain, but from the searching, the hoping, the disappointment. You just want your life back. We get that because we hear it every day from people just like you. Look, I know many of you are here because you're dealing with pain that just won't go away. And if you're one of the millions struggling with neuropathy, you know exactly what I mean. The burning that keeps you up at night, the tingling that makes every step uncertain, the frustration of trying cream after cream, pill after pill with nothing really working. And here's what most people don't understand. Neuropathy happens when the nerves in your feet get damaged. They can't send the right signals to your brain anymore. Those pain signals you're feeling, they're basically your nerves crying for help. The good news is simple. With the right stimulation, those nerves can actually start working right again. We've helped over 50,000 people get their nerves working again using this exact method. And that's why we created NeuroGo. Not just another device, but a complete support system with our Facebook community, diet program, exercise guides, free books, and real people who answer your questions. When other treatments have let you down, NeuroGo delivers the solution you've been searching for, so you can stop managing pain and start living again. You don't have to accept this pain as your new normal. Get 40% off yours today with a 90-day money-back guarantee. Click the link below. You have nothing to lose but the pain.